Well, the season might be over for the New York Giants, but the drama sure isn't. My name is Bryce Gelman. Today we'll be talking about all of the decisions the Giants made about their coaches, what's going on with Wink Martindale and Brian Daboll, and how he hasn't even fully resigned yet, even though it was reported yesterday that he was going to, and today he hasn't formally submitted it. It's all crazy. We'll get to that. First off, let's talk about the good news. Giants fire offensive line coach Bobby Johnson and their special teams coach, Thomas McGahee. Good riddance. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. The Giants made a competent move here, two competent moves that I think anyone could have seen coming, but moves that also, you never know with the franchise because you could, on one hand, have an organization that you believe has the right goals in mind and has the right mindset in place, but will keep a coach like Thomas McGahee, who was there for 6 years over three different head coaches, because of stability. And at the end of the day, the Giants decided that those two areas were dispensable areas with a coach that two coaches that could have, albeit it's for Bobby Johnson a 2-year sample size, could have drastically improved the players under that position. I think the offensive line has shown zero improvement over the last 2 years. Bobby Johnson, of course, being a Brian Daboll disciple. And the Giants made a good move here. They did the right thing. They got rid of two guys who weren't helping the team at the end of the day. And this is, I'm sure that the decision to fire Bobby Johnson for Daboll was a tough decision, but it was a decision that they had to make. And now they'll look elsewhere to fill those two spots. Another spot the Giants will need to fill, and I'm not going to waste any time getting into it, is now their defensive coordinator position. As of yesterday, it was reported. I mean, let's start from the top. In the morning yesterday, when the Giants announced all of their decisions, Daboll was asked straight up, "Or do you expect Kafka and Wink to stay?" And he said, "Yeah, I expect them both to stay." But it was reported. This had to have been within a few hours. The Giants fired Drew Wilkins, who was the outside linebackers coach, one of Wink's right hand guys, and this changed everything. This flipped the script on all of it. It turned this into, okay, yeah, maybe Daboll's telling the truth about Wink coming back, to, okay, this is going south, and it's going south fast. And within just a few more hours after that, it was reported that Wink Martindale was resigning. And then I wake up today and supposedly he hasn't even filed his letter of resignation. So this brings us back to the Jake Glazer report a few weeks ago, where there was a report, that came out that there was dissent between Daboll and Wink and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's old news now, but it highlighted that there was a problem potentially brewing between the two coaches. And then Giants won the next week, and then Daboll gave Wink the game ball. Something felt fishy. And now it has become a little bit more clear what that was and who might have leaked it. And again, I'm spitballing, I'm speculating here, but in my opinion, it looks like Wink Martindale released or leaked that report. Jay Glazer took it, filed it, and it painted Brian Daboll in a bad light, that he couldn't get his coaches under his direction. He couldn't communicate with these guys, whatever you want to say. It just wasn't a good look for Daboll. And what made it clear, not what made it clear, but what makes me think that it was Wink Martindale, is because all of this would make sense, that Wink Martindale wanted the Giants to fire. He wanted to go somewhere else. He didn't like Daboll, and for whatever reason, whoever side you're on, I just don't think that that's the right way to go about it. I think that also making a comment about the Giants being a destination location and whatever that means. I mean, it's kind of like a shot at the Giants organization, because Wink Martindale came from Baltimore. He was out of a job, and the Giants hired him. And this has completely transformed the league's perception of Wink Martindale the last 2 weeks against the Rams and against the Eagles. Both of those teams spoke extremely highly of Wink Martindale's system. And now this is really good from Wink Martindale. But Wink's issue is that he's under contract for another year. So if he resigns, it's not really a good look for him. So he wanted to get fired. He wanted to be let go of that last year of his deal. He resigns I don't really necessarily know. They're going to have to come to some agreement with a buyout where he's going to get paid, or I don't know. I really have no idea. But Wink Martindale is now, and someone is on a flight to Florida, and someone just tweeted Wink walking into the airport. He's flying home to Florida where he lives, and presumably to figure out his next moves. And for the Giants, they need to move away from this as quickly as possible. If you want to fire him just to give in to what he wants, just go ahead and do it, because at this point, it's only bringing negative attention, negative criticism on this Giants team, and specifically to Brian Daboll, who can't run a tight ship, who can't keep his coaches under control. I just don't see what the point of this was from Wink Martindale. And just a couple hours ago, Adoree Jackson was on BT and Sal in his weekly spot on WFAN, and he basically said, like, I was shocked that Wink just got up and left, that there wasn't really any indication of that. There wasn't any indication of dissent between Daboll and Wink. So it leads me to believe that maybe all of this was created out of thin air. Like maybe Wink was just like, all right, I really don't like it here. I don't like Daboll personally. There really aren't any actual, physical issues or verbal spats that have been reported, but maybe none of that was the case, and he just wanted to leave New York. And also last night there was a text thread that I'm gonna read this verbatim. If you haven't seen it, I think you could look at Sean Morash, at Sean Morash on Twitter, but basically this was like a text chain between one of Drew Wilkins, the outside linebacker coach, who was extremely close with Wink. One of his friends sent a text to someone who has some insider news, and basically said that when Daboll told Wink what he's doing, firing Drew Wilkins, Wink stood up and yelled "F you" to him, supposedly, and they stormed, and Wink stormed out, and it was this huge deal. Do I really believe that? I don't know. I really don't know who to believe. I guess as more information comes out, that I think we could start making an actual opinion based off fact, because I don't want to come out here and speculate. I kind of did that before, but based off what we're seeing, again, I said I don't really know who to trust, but it's looking like Daboll wanted Wink back. They may have had a personal thing, a professional thing, but Daboll still wanted him back. Daboll fired one of his buddies in Bobby Johnson. So I don't know. Again, like if there's something personal going on between them, and Daboll fired Drew Wilkins, I could see from Wink's perspective why that's, I don't know, it looks like a personal shot. Even though, again, Daboll fired one of his own guys, whatever. I think that this is all petty. It's stupid. And I think it is bringing a bad aura over a Giants team who kind of saved face this year. Yeah, they finished way below 500. Yeah, they didn't make the playoffs. Yeah, they didn't build off of an extremely successful season last year. And yeah, they only ended up with the 6th pick when they could have had better. Again, I don't care about that. I'm happy they beat the Eagles. When I realized that it was only going to be a difference of 1 pick, if they lost the game, I think they could have finished 4. But if they lost the game, even if they won the game, they still could have ended up with 5. But I think if they lost the game, they probably would have ended up with 5. The Chargers ended up losing that game against the Chiefs. If they won, the Giants still would have gotten 5, even if they beat the Eagles, and the Jets won as well. So that helped out. The Patriots, I mean, that was like the game everyone was looking at, is that if the Patriots beat the Jets, they obviously didn't. So whatever. It doesn't matter. The Giants blew out the Eagles. The Giants made the Eagles look completely incompetent. I think every Giants fan looks at that as a win in their books. I look at it as a win in my books. I know it wasn't what I was rooting for, but I think as the game progressed, it was like, okay, good. This is great. I'd love to see the Eagles in complete disarray. I love to see them in a spot that we haven't seen them in a really long time, where they're questioning everything and everyone and looking at who to fire. And their offensive defensive coordinators look like they have absolutely zero idea what they're doing. It looks like Nick Sirianni is not prepared to be an NFL head coach without 2 head coach ready coordinators. Jalen Hurts does not look like anything what he was last year. He's turned the ball over a lot more. It's great to see what has happened to the Eagles here, and I'm not downplaying the Giants win. It was a great win. The Eagles played their starters for the majority of that first half. So the Eagles had a chance and they gave up, which was just awesome to see. And the Giants still ended up with 6. But all of that being said, yes, it was a disaster of a year. Yes, it wasn't as successful as the Giants had hoped, but they did save face at the end of the year, where their coordinators and their head coach and Brian Daboll looked competent, and I think a lot of people did have the whole. I think the word I'm looking for, the phrase I'm looking for, I probably held out hope. I subscribe to that same belief that I definitely held out hope that Wink Martindale would return. And when it originally came out yesterday that, when Daboll said that Wink would return, I was extremely excited about the prospect of having Wink Martindale with the team for the 3rd year. And just to build on what the Giants were able to do on defense, they didn't sack the quarterback as much as they wanted to. They ranked in the middle of the pack when it came to most defensive metrics besides yards per game allowed and points per game allowed, which they were bottom 7 in both. So this wasn't like, I don't know, this wasn't this perfect coordinator came in. Yes, you can blame the personnel. You can blame the lack of adequate production from the edge rushers and Aziz and Kayvon. I know Kayvon got his fair share of sacks, but those two guys ranked in the bottom 10 for all offense or for all outside linebackers and edge rushers in their perspective and specific metrics. So this, again, it is a tough situation. It's a negative one the Giants need to clear up pretty fast, or else it's going to lead to this long stretch of negative coverage for the team. And in New York, you want to avoid that at all costs, even though it sometimes, for the most part, it is fair, but it usually just brings bad vibes to the team when the vibes have been pretty good ever since the Giants won 3 in a row under Tommy DeVito. And the vibes should be high after that win against the Eagles, albeit, again, they missed the playoffs. But that is what it is what it is. So that's all I got today about the Giants. Hopefully they're able to figure this out. Hopefully they get Wink out. If they got to fire him, they got to fire him. Let him go. It would be a disaster if he went to the Eagles. I feel like that team would become 10 times better. That would suck. That's like the worst case scenario. Hopefully the Giants, I'm sure they're holding out hope. I think it's been reported they're holding out hope that Mark Davis decides to look elsewhere for his head coach and not elevate Antonio Pierce from his interim head coach basis to being a full-time and under contract head coach. And hopefully the Giants can bring him in as defensive coordinator. That would be ideal. I don't see that happening. I think he'll end up being the head coach. I don't know why. It feels like he deserves it. It feels like the players are behind him. Mark Davis is going to be left with no choice. So the Giants will have to find another defensive coordinator, and they're going to have to fill a bunch of other positions too, because for a team that's still kept at the top of, it's like you cut off they didn't have to cut off the head here. That they have their top guys, they have their stability, they still have their GM, they still have their head coach, they still have their offensive coordinator. It's not the end of the world. It's not the be all end all finding some new coordinators. The Giants will be able to do that, and they will find the guys that they believe best fit the organization and the guys who have had the best success in the past. And I trust the organization. You should trust them too. Draft wise, I wouldn't be so sure about that, considering the busts they've drafted in the previous years. But that will remain to be seen. That will be another topic for another day. We will discuss the Giants' potential options at number 6 and with their 2 second-round picks, and even further than that coming up in these next few months. But since the football season's over, it is time to focus on basketball, which I have been doing a little more, but there will be even more Knicks content to consume for all of your liking. And please, if you like this, give me a like on this video and a subscription on YouTube. I appreciate you all tuning in, and I will see you all next week.